that's so weird that you get sucked into the energy and then the body just wants to go into this position, this posture, and even your tongue is affected. This field is shaping your body in ways that are beyond your conscious control, and other people are experiencing them too. And it's happening because you're focusing your attention on bliss that comes up during a meditation session.
Welcome, Cody.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Well, hello, everybody. So this is HeartMind Happy Hour, weekly show where I interview guests on consciousness and meditation and technology and the intersection of all three. And I'm very excited today to be interviewing Dr. Cody Rall, who I've been a longtime fan of. And so I'm really honored to have you here. Welcome, Cody.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. So first thing I always like to do on my show is just to bring us all into presence, since we've all been out on our day. So if we can just take a moment and come into this moment, welcome our breath and close our eyes and take a few deep breaths. Feeling the space inside of us. Dropping down into the core of our being, connecting with Source. Feeling the room around us and the awareness of the space. Asking for being present, to have a fantastic conversation together, to help anybody who's watching provide information and light and guidance. And coming back now, you can open your eyes when you're ready. Well, again, like I said, very honored to have you here. I've been a long time fan. So you are, I'm going to introduce you first. So you are, I know you, and maybe many of our viewers know you as the founder of Techforpsych, a YouTube channel where you interview folks on technology and meditation and the intersection of those things. You are also a board certified psychiatrist with the Navy, correct?
That is correct.
And in addition to that, you're part of you're founding partner of Stanford Brainstorm, and as well, and board certified member of APA and an innovation lab. So you're doing a lot of things in this space. That's awesome.
Yeah, they kind of come and go throughout the year in terms of the amount of involvement. And it's been interesting over the last couple of years to see how they've balanced out between Techforpsych and those other endeavors, and which ones seem to be growing and which ones seem to be kind of going in a direction that I didn't really want to go in, and kind of redirecting, back to my source, my path. So that's always been interesting to see, what other people are interested in and what I'm interested in, and trying to figure out how to not get distracted, because I'm sure, as you've seen, there's so many different paths that you can go in this field already. Even though it's such a small niche, there's so many directions that you can go with it, that it's been always a challenge just to be focused and moving forward with the content for the channel rather than getting pulled in all these different directions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure meditation helps with that, to stay aligned with what really sparks and inspires you, and where you really want to contribute. So I think I'd love to start with a little bit about your story, about how you got started with Techforpsych, and what inspired that in you. Like I said, I'm a huge fan, and that was how I discovered you. I'd gotten a Muse headband, and I was trying to understand it, and I'm like, somebody must have talked about this thing and what it does and what you can do with it. And I started Googling, and your YouTube videos popped up, and I must have binge watched 10 in a row. It was like, oh, this was the information I was looking for. So tell me, how did you get inspired to start Techforpsych?
I think, well, going way back, I've always been really interested in transformations, people being able to improve themselves. So personal development. I started sort of on the external. I did bodybuilding back in high school and in college, and was always fascinated about how you could use diet and exercise to transform your body. And then that grew into a fascination of the mind. And I definitely had more of a big picture view, I think, than other people of where we're headed as a civilization. How can we get to the next step? And I think everybody on this group probably has similar thoughts, but as you can imagine, when you get outside of the group and talk to other people, they're not always sort of thinking about these types of things. And naturally that leads to neuroscience and just being fascinated about how is it that this organ that we have in our heads is creating this reality? How is it interacting with the present moment? And, I was going through medical school and being more and more interested in neuroscience and trying to decide, well, should I be a surgeon? Should I be in the operating room just cutting gallbladders out of people? That doesn't sound very fun. I mean, of course, it's a noble profession and you're really saving people's lives and doing something great. But, I was more attracted, again, to big picture issues and trying to decide, should I go neurology? Should I try to go psychiatry? And talking to people that were in psychiatry, they were a little bit more in that mindset, trying to figure out how actually the function of the brain creates mood, emotions, thinking. And so that became the field that I went into. And I just became fascinated about brain health and how you can be the best that you can be and what it is that you can do in order to do that. And naturally, meditation came out of that as it became more and more popular over the years. The various benefits, always shown in magazines. You can focus better. You're more calm, more centered. And then, of course, psychiatric illness as well. It's how does the brain become so abnormal that a person becomes severely depressed or develops schizophrenia? These are all serious problems that are affecting society. And, I think it was obvious to me that these were brain disorders. There's something about the way that the organic tissue is functioning to create this person's reality. And there was nothing more fascinating to me than looking at the technology that allowed us to peer into what was happening. How can we help people with mental illness? How can we help people that are functioning well function better? So I went into residency, and the thing that fascinated me was all these big fancy MRI machines, something called magnetic encephalography, where they measure the magnetic brain waves coming out of your brain, looking at the blood flow, mapping out what they call circuits now to take a look at how these different areas of the brain interact with each other to, not only create reality, but, create your attention, create your mood, all these different things. And then at the same time, I was starting the YouTube channel and talking about these scientific concepts. And one of the videos that I started doing was about these EEG wearables. And it turned out a lot of people were interested in these wearables. And it is more, I think, obvious looking back why that is. It's because not everybody can interact with a functional MRI machine. Not everybody can, have hands-on experience with magnetic encephalography machine, that type of thing. But when you have a wearable that has EEG that people can use at home and democratize that technology and that information, naturally people are really curious about it because they have firsthand experience with it. Gets them interested in neuroscience, get them interested in meditation and self-development. And I think that's really where the crossroads all came together, to where more and more my YouTube channel became about neuroscience devices, and particularly wearables that other people can interact with, because that's where people can have, again, firsthand experience and be excited about neuroscience and be excited about self-development and meditation. So I think that it's just a recipe for a topic that wants to be discussed by people on social media and YouTube. So that's really how that path really came about. And I'm so appreciative for everybody that's became interested in meditation and neuroscience and collaborating with me and asking questions. It's been so much fun over the last 5 to 6 years of doing it. So it's been an interesting journey so far, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the near future, because the devices are only going to get more powerful and only more interesting as we go along.
Yeah. Completely. And I'm really grateful. And I know so many people are, for your contributions specifically, because yeah, it's incredibly helpful. You talk about democratizing data and democratizing this technology. And I think, that's where I come from, is from the biohacking movement.
Yep.
As a human potential coach, I started listening to people like Dave Asprey and Bulletproof, and trying to hack my own brain, essentially, was and the first thing you start to do when you want to hack your own brain is, well, I need data, and I come from a science background, so I need data, and now I need to understand it and understand what I'm doing, so I can start to make smart choices in my life and use this technology to help improve my life and maybe other people around me. So yeah, I think it came, you were riding or intersecting with that wave of the biohacking movement, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. And it's a really great movement. I like it a lot because it gives people self efficacy, an ability to help themselves. And what you see in mainstream medicine so often is people rely too much on medications or different treatments that might have a lot of side effects. And being able to interact with this technology or learn these skills can solve so many different problems at the same time. It's not a panacea, but at the same time, biology, especially the brain and the mind, is so complicated that it's really difficult to make an intervention and not have it have side effects, that type of thing. So I just love things that give people that power to improve their own lives. And I'm really all about that. And I hope that comes through on the channel. It really excites me.
Yeah, I think it really does come through. And I'm very much in alignment with that as well, of just, this is about taking charge of your own biology and your own health. And from my perspective, and giving people, empowering people to change their lives for the better.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different facets of it. It's just fascinating to be able to do a meditation session and then take a look at your brainwaves on Mind Monitor. And there's a feedback mechanism there later when you can see the brainwaves. But then we've got the neurofeedback technology too that can, give you some hints on whether you're in the sweet spot or not, depending on what settings the neurofeedback is on, and get real-time learning. And I think that's really where this is headed. Is it's amazing to be able to develop these meditative skills over 30, 40 years. And of course, there's a lot of wisdom that comes with that, I'm sure. But how can we, accelerate that a little bit? How can we make meditation and these cognitive skills more accessible to people that, want to engage in the technology? And as we all know, so many people come into meditation and don't really progress past a certain point because they're not experiencing things that make them want to continue the habit. So how do we create these experiences to get people really interested in brain training, meditation, and other mechanisms to develop that self-efficacy? I think is another really interesting facet of using the technology.
Oh, gosh, I think that is so key. I couldn't agree with you more. That as somebody who was in that camp, tried meditation, didn't know if I was doing it right, kind of left it because, I couldn't make it stick. And that is actually what the technology did for me. You and I worked together early last year, and that was such a game changer for me, of putting the technology on and then having a coach, knowing that I was doing it right, and then having the help of the neurofeedback. Like that trifecta was golden. It changed my life. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and the science is coming along, and there's a lot of people out there doing it. We really need to be continuing to collect data and trying different things out, being open-minded with both the process and each other. It's such a Wild West area that things are progressing very quickly. And, it's nice to have some heavyweight scientific people coming into it, as well as other people that maybe don't have as much of a background in science, but they have such a rich history and experience with meditation. And they all seem to be exchanging information that is really helping the niche. And I call it the niche. I wonder what you would call it. It's this neurofeedback meditation niche that's, I feel like, is really taking off, and
Yeah.
it's amazing to see people come into it and be so excited to find it. You know, it seems like every other day someone comes on the YouTube channel or social media and they're just freaking out. They're like, I had no idea this existed, and have all these questions. You know, it's really fun.
Yeah, it's I kind of think of it as the cognitive performance, arena. I don't know, but it is even actually narrower than that, because there are other people doing cognitive performance work, and performance in a really general sense, because it could be helping somebody with some serious health issues too, I think.
Yeah, I mentioned other things that I've been involved in, like the Psychiatry Innovation Lab and Stanford Brainstorm, and I think that they're great organizations, but I do feel sometimes that they're taking old ways of doing mental health and bringing them into current paradigms. For example, cognitive behavioral therapy is great, but it's been done a million times in the past, and just because you make a new app for it doesn't mean that it's going to revolutionize the paradigm of how we're helping people in mental health. So I get a little frustrated with mainstream medicine as of late, because I think that people are paying attention to this. I think that people are becoming more and more curious about it. I just think that it's going to take more powerful technology and more evidence for really percolate throughout the entire medical system. I think it's going to happen. But it is an interesting viewpoint from, we're the pioneers. We're moving forward with this. And I think that it's really going to change how mental health is done. But, I think that, I don't know how much resistance there's going to be, but in terms of generating interest from creating mechanisms where people that come into mainstream medicine are getting this as like a compulsory thing, would be it even being offered more often, I think is going to be really important in the future. So it's just something that I'm keeping track of, and I really want to, I guess, raise awareness of what's going on. And that's what I'm doing with the YouTube channel. And I really hope that mainstream medicine follows along. But, I think as we see the internet sort of fracture into different niches and different modes of information, it's really just going to rely on people to find it at a certain point and feel like they have that self-efficacy to benefit from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting what you're saying about the kind of mainstream medicine. And I wonder how much you feel like, so a lot of the work that I do is around, sort of taking ancient wisdom like meditation, these things that, that have been developed in India and Tibet and, a lot of the East, energy medicine work, and which show incredibly powerful benefits, but really, are sort of at the fringes of American medicine, and bringing them into the mainstream. And I wonder if some of these technologies like we're talking about will help break that barrier down. Do you think that's the case?
I think they will. I think the more that people see that, I think that in this group, people are very aware that their brains are physical entities that have matter. They have data. They create data that you can see in brainwaves. And pretty soon we're going to have wearables that you're going to be able to actually see your brain. This functional infrared spectroscopy stuff is coming along really fast. Mary Lou Jepson's one of my favorites to watch on that, and they've released their prototype pictures of rat brains just using near-infrared light that's got no radiation, and that it uses holography and near-infrared light and big data techniques to assimilate an image that is going to be very low cost. And I think that that combined with ultrasound through different mechanisms is going to have us have wearables where you can actually see your brain function. You can see the blood flow change. You can see the electrical signals. And I think that the more that people see the brain as, again, being this physical thing that you can improve, the more that we're going to realize that you can have these interventions work on it. Not to get too far off on a tangent on the technology, maybe we can come back to that later in the interview. But, I mean,
Yeah.
another example of that is Brian Johnson and Kernel just released earlier this month. I don't know if people are aware of Kernel, but they were working on an implantable brain-computer interface. At least that was the announcement of what they would be working on 4 or 5 years ago, kind of like Elon Musk's Neuralink. But they recently just came out and said, hey, we decided to make a helmet instead that costs around $5,000 to start out with, that has not only near-infrared spectroscopy, but magnetic encephalography as well. So they're not only just looking at the blood flow of the brain, but they're looking at the magnetic pulses of the brain too. And, this is technology that's just going to come down in cost and be more and more, as we said, democratized so that people can interact with this technology and see that the brain can be altered. We're going to be able to measure before and after interventions of meditation and other cognitive exercises. And I think not only is this going to become common in medicine, but it's also going to become common in people that are exploring high performance, biohacking to, as you said, like to improve their brain.
Yeah.
So that's, and I know I have a unique perspective because I kind of gravitate towards the technology aspect, but I always really have felt that the more that you can interact with neuroscience, the more that you can interact with the brain, especially if you can see pictures of your own brain, it really changes people's thinkings about what's possible for cognitive training.
Yeah, I completely agree. I ended up investing in a WAVI as a coach because, so for folks who don't know, WAVI is a 19-channel EEG. So this would allow me to work with clients at the beginning, do a full EEG, see where their brain's at. We do a bunch of work together, and then I can take a picture 10 weeks later and see how their brain's changed. And it's, even just the little bit of work I've done with it, it's phenomenal. Like you're saying, to see your brain, technology that was previously you have to go to a hospital or some really fancy clinic and pay thousands of dollars. And, I can offer it for a small fraction of that. It's incredible.
Yeah. And the price is coming down, and, the devices that we have are getting more and more powerful. I think your WAVI is probably better than MindLift at this point for assessment, but, MindLift just a couple of weeks ago started rolling out their beta assessment program where, you've got the one auxiliary electrode that goes into the USB port in the back. And I don't know if you've done the assessment yet, but you actually move the auxiliary to different parts of your head and get the different readings. And then boom, you've got a baseline to work with there. So, and they're creating their own depository of brain information. In the past, to do quantitative EEG, you had to use other clinical pools of data to be able to get the statistical measures, how much you differentiate from the mean, something called the Z-score. But, pretty soon here, awesome MindLift, and, you and I love it.
Yeah.
Because they're a great company. They've done amazing things. Every time I turn around, they're making another step of innovation in their neurofeedback technology. Making it more interactive for the clients, making it more powerful for the providers. And here they are again, creating a whole new paradigm shift. You can do, it's not full on quantitative EEG, but it's getting very close that you can do from the comfort of your home. It's amazing.
It's amazing. And yeah, and for those clients like that, I've got a client in Canada, for those clients that are far away that you're never going to see, that's incredible to be able to walk them through, a baseline EEG like that. I totally agree with you. It's remarkable.
Exactly. There's no other way that you'd be able to confidently send or a device to someone. Or, really, most people that are doing the neurofeedback at this point already have the Muse headband. They've already kind of gotten hooked and they have the device. At a certain point, I know for a lot of my clients, it's more about just sending them the extra auxiliary electrode from MindLift, and they're good to go. They're ready to rock. So it's exciting.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with clients on MindLift and some of the successes they're having. I'd love to hear more about that. I'm sure people would be interested to know what your clients are saying about the MindLift technology and Muse in general.
Yeah, the program is evolving, of course, as more innovations come out. I try to fit more and more into the program. There's only so much that you can do. and trying to determine the length of the program. It's 2 months long at this point. And really the way that I've designed it as of late is, the last one we actually did a group cohort, and it was really fun because people could, split off and do their mind lift exercises independently and, work at different brainwave frequencies. And I think that these different brainwave frequencies have unique characteristics that you can use as tools for a toolbox of a meditation session later. We were talking about earlier about Ajahn Brahm's book, in which, he talks about these different skills like attention, awareness, relaxation. These are different tools that you can use to create an amazing meditation session. Maybe when you're first starting out, he gave the example of a carpenter, an apprentice carpenter learning how to use each type of tool. So, here's a saw, here's, a screwdriver, here's these different tools, and you need to learn how to use each tool so that when you are creating maybe a piece of furniture from a raw piece of wood, that you know how to do that, and you do it sort of subconsciously at a certain point. You've got all these tools and you know when to apply them to create the furniture. But in the case of meditation, it's this amazing meditation system, or amazing meditation experience session. And really what I'm trying to do with the mind lift system, with what I call the brain circuit training program, is develop these different skill sets of, here's what SMR feels like. This is going to help you with your attention. Here's what alpha feels like. Notice that it's a little bit more of a relaxed feeling. This is engaging your relaxation response of your physiology so that when you are, too amped up, you can relax into alpha and go into a deeper meditative state. Here's what low beta feels like. So there's these different brainwaves targets that we can go off and explore with the mind lift system, come back and talk about how that felt, what experiences people had, and using those tools to create an architecture of a meditation experience, and hopefully having people come away from the program with more sharpened tools that they can use in their meditation sessions later. And I've been even more, I could not have predicted seeing some of the things that have come out of the group cohorts in terms of, it's amazing how consistent people will be. If someone has a little bit of a drowsiness characteristic to their meditation sessions, they'll have a lot of theta. And it's really interesting to see that carry true through the different modules, and work with that person to generate more awareness and wakefulness to bring down that theta so that they feel like they're hitting the sweet spot. Yeah, they get better scores on the mind lift system. Yes, they feel like they're getting that positive reward from the neurofeedback and like they've accomplished something. But at the end of the day, it's more about learning about where your brain is at so that later on you can have the best meditation sessions that you've ever experienced. So theta was one that really came up pretty often. Definitely high beta, which is a sign of anxiety. One of my clients consistently had high beta, and it became apparent over a couple of the calls that he's a very anxious and scattered person. And he was really great in sharing it with the group. And I was really appreciative of people that have the confidence to be able to share it with the group. It's not a share all at the very beginning. We really try to give people time to warm up and make sure that they're comfortable sharing these things. And it is it coupled with individual feedback from myself that is recorded before the actual group session. So it's not just a group, there's individual components of it as well. But this individual had a lot of high beta, and we worked with him to do certain breathing techniques. And let's just say that he had much better meditation sessions after it. And as you can imagine, it's hard to get sucked into the breath or into a meditation object when you're anxious. You're scattered and you can't experience that. And it was really rewarding to see that showing him the yellow line of high beta on the graphs made him really resonate with the fact that he's very anxious. And then directing him to use different relaxation exercises before the meditation not only brought the high beta down on the graphs, but also had him really experience a much improved session that made him actually want to continue meditation, whereas before he had never really been consistent. So those are the types of things that I've seen on the recent cohorts that are really exciting. And, the program is going to continue to evolve, but I think that those will be staples of the brain circuit training program moving forward.
That's super awesome. Yeah. And I think just to hammer it home, that really shows the power of being able to feel what, relaxation feels like, and then seeing the data on the screen, which was my experience, my own personal experience when I did the program. For me, it was like, what does focused attention actually feel like in my body? And yeah, it's very powerful to see the data and have the feedback. There's not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty wild. I mean, I went kind of incognito to a neurofeedback clinic last summer that was using MindLift. They didn't know who I was. So I don't think that they knew who I was. They never said anything. So, I was working with this psychologist that was having me do a lot of SMR. I was kind of sitting there and like, okay, this is what SMR feels like. And then boom, it was like this, how you do relaxed attention on the breath for long enough, you have these state changes. And it's pretty wild to just be looking at the screen and have that come out of nowhere. And I'm like, wow, there's really something to this. It's just like, it's not just looking at little characters on the screen. If you're really zoning in on this brainwave frequency and honing your attention, you're going to experience some things which are powerful.
Very. And I think I talk about this with my meditation teacher all the time. It's really amazing how the state changes are so obvious. I remember asking early on, like, well, I know. And he's like, oh yeah, you'll know. It's like, they really are. Or I say gates that you walk through. They're amazing.
Yeah. I love the gates. And what I have experienced over the years is when I first started out meditating, it was like I'd only get those 1 out of 20 times of meditation. It was just pure dogged determination, I guess, to keep it as a habit and, be doing it every morning. But I think that one of the rewarding things that happens over the years is that you really get to a place where almost every meditation session, you're having really satisfying state changes that remind you every day that there's some kind of energy in there. You're tapping into something that's vast and feels ancient to me and incredibly interesting. That recalibrates your mind to be thinking, all this superficial surface layer stuff is one thing, but there's something deeper and more powerful underneath of this experience.
Absolutely. I think that's a great lead into, a question that I wanted to get to, which was, you did one of your last episodes on, after you read Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond, Ajahn Brahm's book that I'm such a huge fan of, and had been doing his practices personally myself, and you really inspired, and it sounds like you're having some amazing meditations. So do you want to I'd love to probe that a little bit with you and talk about what changed for you and where you are now with it.
Yeah. So I have always been practicing attention on the breath. And, that really came from going through Headspace. So I did Headspace maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And that was really helpful for me, because when I first started meditating, I think I was just sitting there either staring at a wall or watching my breath, really some kind of attention exercise that was supposed to elicit this meditation. And so I think Headspace was helpful for me in the beginning of adding some structure. So being able to do a body scan, some visualizations of healing light filling up your body, and experiencing some very pleasant sensations from that. And then also training attention on the breath. And then as I got into the neurofeedback exercises with the Muse and just deeper into meditation, those state changes would happen every once in a while just with attention on the breath. One thing that, and what I've noticed is this is all very much of an evolutionary process. There's not like just one thing that really changed things for me in terms of meditation. It's again been this evolution of all these different tools that you sort of learn how to use in the right moment that create these great experiences. But another thing that has been very helpful to me within recent years is becoming more aware of these energy centers, the chakras. And if you would have asked me, 5 or 8 years ago when I was in medical school, if I would be focusing on chakras and trying to open them up, the energy centers, and creating energy flow through, my spine, I would have said you're insane. No, I think I was more open-minded than that, but my head was not in that place. And I think the more that I became accustomed to opening awareness of different areas of the body, it's just these little energy pockets that are there. You can feel them, especially if you figure out how to find them and then systematically open them up. And so that's really been a big part of it for me, is taking a look at the different energy centers, and in the preparation, making sure that they're opening, visiting each one, and really blessing them with the metta, and trying to open them up with the loving kindness attention, and really feel like they're connecting as you ascend up the spine. And again, another tool, and this really came from talking to Stephen and Kevin, is this spinal breathing technique, where you really start circulating the energy. And I had heard of it by reading Joe Dispenza's materials, but Joe Dispenza's is a little challenging. I'm still working with that, because that has actually to do with contracting muscles as you go up and encouraging what he calls the central nervous system fluid flow. For whatever reason, what's been working best for me is actually kind of just not visualizing, but feeling the energy flow without muscle contractions. And that's just where I'm at right now. It seems to be less distracting for me to try to synchronize all these different muscle groups to get the prana flowing. But so setting the stage with the mindfulness, making sure that the energy centers are opened up, and then doing some spinal breathing. And then, wow, what I loved about the book that you just mentioned, the mindfulness book by Ajahn Brahm, I had never, in Chuladasa's book, Mind Illuminated, he talked about nimitta, and maybe I had misunderstood what he was saying. Maybe I needed to describe it in a different way. But, he described the nimitta as, again, fleeting, coming out of nowhere, and as these lights. But what really I got out of Ajahn Brahm's book was, I had seen them before and I had not even realized it, because going back to the Muse headband, what would happen sometimes, I'd be focusing on the breath, and then because I was focusing on the breath, not getting distracted, and then at the end of the session, this big surge of bliss would come out of nowhere, and I'd be like, oh, that's cool. Maybe I should just follow that. It's not in the meditation protocol, but I'll just, go off and see what it does. And, really enter expansive, amazing spaces of bliss and, again, expansiveness, and really coming out of it with a feeling of relaxation, I suppose what you would call a hint of equanimity. And reading that book made me realize that these, I'm still working on my vernacular with this. As you can tell, I've only put out one video on it, and I'm still working on my way of explaining it. But it's like these energy globules that come up as you're sitting there in the open space, and they're feelings of bliss, and they can be over here, they can be over here, they can be big, they can be smaller. And the way that Ajahn Brahm described it that I loved is that they're really within your awareness, your meditative awareness. You're not actually like visually seeing these flashes of light, although I'm sure in the more intense experiences, you really do feel like it. And I've experienced as well, as you center down, you find this globule of bliss, and it's like your brain is trying to assign either a color or a shape to it. And so you're kind of like, well, this one feels red. It's kind of red to me, or this one's more yellow, or this one's actually like purple. And what Ajahn Brahm says in the book that has just worked so perfectly is you kind of sit there and watch it. You don't move too much with your attention, or else you're going to scare it off, but you narrow down on the center of it. And there's this powerful, powerful energy that is coming out of those nimitta that really just pull in your attention and suck you into a completely different space. And, you know, I've been trying to figure out how I can not get so tense when this is happening, because my muscles are seizing up a little bit. I'm trembling a little bit. And I think that it's something that you figure out how to deal with time. And that's what I'm reading up on right now. I've been looking online a lot about people's experiences about how to calm that down. And you know what's really spooky about this whole thing? I find it spooky.
What's spooky?
You're looking at these descriptions and people are talking about these things that you had no idea existed, but you've experienced them because you have done the meditation session. So one that really weirded me out recently was I had noticed my tongue was doing something certain when I'm really getting sucked into the middle of the nimitta, and there's a lot of energy coming out of there. It's like your tongue curls up to the roof of your mouth. And there's all kinds of descriptions of this online. I'm like, that's so weird that you get sucked into the energy and then the body just wants to go into this position, this posture, and even your tongue is affected. Mm-hmm. And it's like this field or this energy or whatever is deep down underneath there that you're entering and that you're interacting with is this field is shaping your body in ways that are beyond your conscious control, and other people are experiencing them too. And it's happening because you're focusing your attention on bliss that comes up during a meditation session. And that is so bizarre to me. So I'm still coming to terms with it. I'm sure there's people in this group that are very familiar with these concepts, but I'm, and I try to be as open as I can on the channel. I'm learning right along with everybody else and trying to apply the technology side to things too. So I'm allowed to get weirded out too, right?
Absolutely. I'm right with you there. Definitely on the learning journey. And when you describe something and somebody else describes, either a longtime meditator says, oh yes, that's exactly it. Or you read about, how you describe something like, yeah, it was like, a clear open sky. And the person you're talking to goes, yeah, I know exactly what you mean,
Or I liked yours. One of the ones I commented on recently was like, you had posted one of your sessions and you said it was like a tractor beam pulling you up. And literally like the day or two before I had, the intense nimitta pulling me in where I'm like kind of shaking a little bit. And then boom, it's like, okay, I'm through and I'm not shaking anymore. It's not as intense, but man, is this tractor beam pulling me up into space here. And I'm just relaxed. There's no effort anymore. And it is just this relaxed attention that there's no effort because you're not being distracted by anything because this tractor beam is just pulling you up into the sky.
I know, incredible, right? And like, you feel like you could sit there forever.
Yes.
Like,
I never understood how people could meditate for hours on end before within the last couple of years. And as I've experienced these states, because it's effortless, because it feels so good, you can sit there for a long time, and there's a time dilation or condensation effect to it because you come out of the state. First of all, you don't want to even come out of it because I have to get to work. I've got to either film a video or get to my clinic, my daily clinic if it's during the week. And I don't even want to open my eyes because the second you do, the light is just so intense. Your sensory mechanisms are so sharp and sensitive that the coming out of the meditation takes a little while to recalibrate. And even after that, you're kind of, I recently have had sessions where I'm just walking around the house here, and people will be trying to talk to me, and maybe I might be a little slow to respond just because I'm not there as much as usual. And then all these epiphanies come up about these descriptions of these monks being slow to answer to people, or people that are deep into meditation. They're responsive, but it takes a little while to respond, probably because they don't want to be pulled out of it as much. Of course, they're more advanced than where I'm at, but yeah, you just hear stories, or you think about the meditator come out of a deep meditation and maybe being a little slow to respond, or not wanting to come out of the meditation, and it's this energy that's just through them. They don't feel like speaking, feel like just observing and being there in the moment, and any interaction with anything else pulls me out of that. I should, be speaking in the first person at this point. At least that's what I've experienced on these really deep meditation sessions. And you carry that with you throughout the day, which I think is the beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I agree. I mean, and were that more people to experience that, to really connect with, this bigger energy, this source energy, whatever you want to call it, that is clearly there, that you connect with in meditation, and it really changes your view of everything. Right.
And what's really incredible, I think, coming out of this research that they, do at University of Madison, Wisconsin, with the Dalai Lama, or these very high level meditators they do brain scans with, is there's a couple of things going on in the brain. First of all, they can, where it takes me 20 minutes or 40 minutes of just constant effort to barely tap into that state, they can do it in 5 seconds. Boom, they're there. And that's been shown on the brain waves and, in the descriptions of what they experience. And not only that, they can maintain the state throughout the day. So it's not this state, it's not a state change, it's a trait change, as they talk about. Their brains have been shaped over time to be able to do this type of thing. And, it carries on over in their personality and their way of interacting with people and their wisdom about the nature of the universe. And I think that that's just so incredibly interesting and cool.
I think so too. I've been on this journey to explore Locke Kelly's work, effortless meditation, Mahamudra practice, classic, Tibetan practice, just for that, to shift your day-to-day waking awareness, where you're carrying that awareness, the awake awareness, and the open-hearted, Locke actually calls it HeartMind awareness, with you wherever you go. It's so that you aren't having this in out of meditation experience of consciousness, but a fluid, awake experience of consciousness, no matter what you're doing.
Right. And if we can use technology to enhance that, then I'm all for it.
Absolutely. Me too. Well, I guess another sort of last thing I know viewers are interested to hear, and I would love to just talk on a little bit more, is because you have this wealth of experience with all these different devices that you've used and had a privilege to try, and most of us can afford one or two. I'd be really curious for you to expand a little more on some of the most promising ones, the ones, if you had to pick, tell your best friend, these are the 2 or 3 best ones to get. What would you say?
I think that you have to take a look at a couple of things. So I think that EEG is coming a long ways, but when it gets down to it, EEG is a bit of an older technology. So it's more about how do you use the signal. And I think Muse has done an incredible job of assimilating a tribe of people that are interested in meditation. And because they've gotten feedback, they could design the software with it, and they're collecting data from meditators, they really have the best ecosystem, I think, right now for meditation. There's a couple other devices out there that I've had quite a bit of experience with. Emotive has an interesting setup. They've really gravitated more towards the neuroscience research aspect of it, as well as they're trying to get into some, I attention, cognitive performance areas as well, mostly interacting directly to business. I've been a little disappointed in them for that. They seem to have taken a step back from direct to consumer. And I think that their customer service reflects that a little bit, unfortunately. That's another reason why I really like Interaxon with the Muse. They're really good about interacting with their customer base and listening to feedback and innovating on top of that. So those are the two main EEG devices. I've tried other EEG devices. I've tried tried them from China with Macrotellect, from South Korea, and a couple of other ones, and they're all really interesting. And I think that, again, EEG has been around for a while. It's kind of just how you use it. And they're really more advertising and designing their hardware and software towards their niche. So I think that, if you are in any one of those countries, you probably use the one that has been designed there, just because they'll have software in your language and you'll be able to interact with it better with that. But I'm so biased towards the Muse. I think that they have such a good ecosystem, and the fact that MindLift has partnered up with them and created this independent neurofeedback system, I think is so powerful, and that's why I use it with my brain circuit training program. It's really the device that is best designed for our niche. Now, looking forward, there's some really interesting things coming along. OBLAB's functional infrared spectroscopy head device that I got to play around with last October, simply amazing. But again, $35,000 to $40,000 device. It was insane.
Not for your home user.
No, not for your home user.
Unless you're Elon Musk.
Yeah, but incredibly interesting, and really is the future about seeing how the frontal lobe functions as well as the rest of the brain as well. And then I'm really excited. There's a lot of functional infrared spectroscopy devices coming along. There's a pair of head glasses that I should have my hands on here real soon. And then Mendy.
Yeah, what do you think?
That I've gotten a ton of questions about on YouTube. I'm in communication with them, so should happen pretty soon. I think that they're just reeling from their successful Kickstarter campaign, which apparently is the most successful Kickstarter campaign in Sweden's history, which with over $2.2 million raised for this device, which is really exciting. So, my top pick right now is definitely the Muse, but it's going to have some stark competition here pretty soon because a lot of companies are getting into it. And there should be a lot of really interesting things coming along.
So a lot of the people that I interact with are on that performance front. They're trying to have deep meditations. They're trying to have consciousness changing altered experiences and change their traits. For people who don't understand, what is an fMRI? What are these other devices like Mendy or fMRI? How do you use them as a performance meditator to change your experience to have deeper meditations?
So the fMRI would be something that you would go to a clinic for. Usually that's used in just neuroscience studies at this point. It's not going to be available to the average consumer, but functional near-infrared spectroscopy is going to be the next big thing where they're using near-infrared light. So that's tracking the blood flow of the brain.
Yeah, sorry, I confused those. I didn't mean to. Thank you for correcting me.
That's okay. That's okay. So what's really going to be the next thing? So we're going to have multiple modalities, which is going to be really cool because you can, track the actual brain waves with EEG, and that's what we're all doing right now with the Muse. The next step of that is to be able to track blood flow of the brain, which is going to be really important for more long-term changes. So there's definitely a strong component of what they call hypofrontality, meaning that the activity of the frontal lobe goes down as you experience more selflessness, as you become more absorbed in the experience. So that's going to be a very important data measure for us going forward. And that's going to be available in all these functional infrared spectroscopy devices. That's literally like the first thing that you can measure is hypofrontality with it. So that's going to be cool. We're going to get EEG.
So can I just ask? So,
yep.
So you will get feedback on, are you unselfing?
Yeah.
Is that right?
And yep. And, everybody that's biohacking and really interested in flow state, that's going to be a huge component of that because flow state has a big component of hypofrontality, getting out of the way of yourself.
Yeah.
The frontal lobe is that executive.
Is Mendy a device that will help you do that?
Yes. Okay. Yes, they are definitely tracking the blood flow in the frontal lobe on Mendy.
Okay.
As well as this other company that I'm talking with that I don't want to mess up their name. I want to say it's Blue. It's a pair of glasses.
Okay.
I'll have a video coming out on it soon. There's so much going on, it's hard to keep track. So that's going to be interesting. We're going to get, so surface level blood flow, surface level electrical charges. And then when you look at what kernel's doing, we got even more data points because not to get, again, deep into the weeds, but when a neuron fires, the electrical signal gets attenuated, it gets spread out a little bit. The magnetic signal goes tangential, so you can see where it's coming from deeper in the brain. So you get more information deeper into the brain with magnetic encephalography. And then sort of the holy grail that hopefully is coming along here actually relatively soon in different phases is that through a combination of near infrared light and ultrasound, you can actually create images. So just like you're looking at as an MRI of the brain, you'd see an image of your brain from a wearable, be able to track the blood flow of it, and through that be able to track where the electrical and magnetic signals are coming from and truly have comprehensive data of very accurate brainwave biometric data. Tell where it's coming from, what the blood flow in the brain is, how quickly the frequencies are going, and like I said, the power of these devices, the utility of it is going to become much more mainstream at that point.
Wow.
Because not only are you going to be using it for neurofeedback, but as they said in the article, it's I think they talked to Bloomberg Business first. Maybe we can put a link to it on this video, and I'll send you the link. But Colonel just successfully had an experiment where they used their helmet, which uses the magnetic encephalography and the blood flow from the near infrared light to determine what song a person was listening to without knowing what feedback was in. So they collected brain data with the helmet, had them listen to a song, and the computer could tell which song they were listening to.
That's crazy.
And this is all from big data, data accumulation. Yeah. So you can imagine if we're at that right now, where are we going to be in 5 to 10 years? It's going to be a completely different landscape, and we're really on the forefront of it. And I'm really excited and proud about that. And I feel a lot of pride about what we're doing right now because of that, because I think people are going to wake up 5 to 10 years from now, and these devices are going to be coming on the market, and they're not going to know anything about neuroscience or how to use them. And we're going to be sitting here for the last 5 to 10 years being like, here, let me show you what we can do with this. Maybe it's a little arrogant. It's not very Buddhist of me, but anyways, I just want to help, yep. Like, again, that's really where I hope I sound like I'm coming from is, as I said before, I want the medical establishment to become more aware of this technology. These devices should be at every American Psychiatric Association annual meeting, but
they're not.
In order to get them don't get me started.
Okay.
Pharmaceutical companies have a lot more money to throw around to get the desks and the advertising, and you go to the APA and it's all antidepressants and antipsychotics, and the wearables are hard to come by because they're smaller companies, but also the APA or the medical establishment can't profit off them as much as they can from the pharmaceuticals right now. So I think it's going to be a different story as the technology comes along, and that's what I hope happens.
Yeah, the famous quote: "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Comes to mind. It will.
Yes, justice.
We will win.
Love it.
It's a long arc. It's a long arc. All the devices you mentioned so far, which are incredible, and it's amazing to hear you talk about them and super exciting. All the ones you've talked about so far are passive, correct? You're not.
There are a couple of active things going on. So the ones that I talked about are passive. Some of the active ones in the past have been Think, which had some limited success, is not really putting out new versions now. I think that they use direct electrical stimulation, which still needs some work. Halo Neuroscience, which I had the great pleasure of talking to the CEO and one of the co-founders in the San Francisco office last summer, this time last year, uses direct electrical stimulation on the motor cortex to improve motor function. And they are looking into actually using that technology to enhance meditation sessions and are very gingerly looking into that area as well. And believe it or not, the dream.
I have a Halo, and
yeah, right.
I was super interested in your interview and very much perked up when he mentioned that they were in the meditation arena looking at that. I was like, oh, I want to be a beta tester for that.
Yeah, that was awesome. I really hope they're continuing on that path, and I'll have to check in with them to see if that's true or not. I haven't seen any announcements. Another one that is really interesting that we didn't talk about yet is the dream. Now, from what I understand, the first dream actually did have a stimulation active component to it to help encourage deep sleep. But because they wanted the Dream 2 to go through FDA approval so that it could be used as a FDA approved polysomnography device, they sort of took that function out of the Dream 2 to more streamline getting into that market. But I hope that they add it back in, because that's really interesting, as well as using active measures rather than just passive measures. Because right now it passively records brainwaves, breath rate, and pulse rate to get measures of a sleep study, which is, the science of it is called polysomnography. But hopefully in future versions, they'll reintroduce back, hopefully with even more scientific evidence of a direct stimulatory effect that's more active to help assist people sleep. So stimulation for sleep, stimulation for meditation, and for focus, as Think did. So they're out there, and I think we'll see more of them, but a lot of them are passive right now.
Yeah, I would add in the lucid dreaming aficionado camp, people who are interested in dream yoga, and I've worked a lot on trying to get into lucid dreaming states, and it's not easy. And so devices that can assist with that too, I think, are super, super interesting. And I know there's a lot of people working in that forum, but it doesn't seem like anything super promising that's a wearable for the consumer has really come out from lucid dreaming technology.
Yeah, I haven't seen any.
Yeah. So, those TDCS active stimulation, it's really interesting, or a device that combines both so you can choose.
And, just to throw even more complicated matters into it, there's, transmagnetic stimulation has been around on the clinical side for psychiatry for about 10 to 15 years. So it's really well documented, a lot of science.
Oh, Cody just dropped out. I don't know if that's me or Cody. Hello.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what happened? You dropped out. Okay.
So transmagnetic stimulation, they have this probe over your head, and it shoots magnetic pulses that go through your skull and cause electrical firing of the brain. And the reason why that probably can work for depression is people have overactive frontal lobes at times that is can be very detrimental on self-referential thinking. So, one way to do that is to meditate and turn that off. Another way to do that is to, pulse it with magnetic pulses and have the brain tissue sort of lower down its excitability. But I've seen some wearables coming out with that as well that claim to be able to use the TMS to influence brain activity. And I've been wanting to look more into that as well. So not only direct electrical stimulation, but also using magnetic pulses. They're going to be using ultrasound here pretty soon too to affect brain tissue.
Interesting. Huh. Oh, that's fascinating, both from I'm sure from a clinical side to help people with real illnesses and mental illnesses where you can just immediately help them. And then on the kind of performance side to help, people just generally attain, have better meditations and all that. It's amazing what is coming online. It's such an exciting time, isn't it?
It is. Well within the realm of taking up an entire career, which is what
what you're doing.
think I'm experiencing by now. I'm like, well, I guess this is probably what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, because there's so much going on that it's hard to even keep up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I so appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge and your stories and your experiences. Again, I know that I'm one of a ton of people who just really appreciate all the content and information you put out there on the web. I know you put your heart and soul into it, spend a ton of time, and I'm just like so grateful for what you've done and what you're doing. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Holly. I appreciate it. And it was fun to do it in this forum as well, to be able to answer questions and riff a little bit. So I had a really fun time.
Yeah, this has been a blast. Really. Thank you tons. All right. Well, that will wrap it up for today. Oh, let's see. Just to be clear, and I'll put this in the show notes, people can find you on Techforpsych. And if they're interested in your programs or coaching, where do they go?
They can go to my website, www.techforpsych.com/coaching.
Okay.
And also I have a new PDF up if people are interested in. I put some just recent developments in there and how to take a look at calibrating the Muse headband and using it to get deeper meditation sessions. So I called it Muse Meditation Mastery. So you might want to check that out as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, if you look on my most recent video, there's a link there in the description. I need to get more links up on other videos so that people can find it. But I think the best way to find it right now is go to that most recent video, the Ajahn Brahm video, and there's a link to it in the description. It's kind of a beta test right now, but I'd really be curious to hear what people think about it. And I put some really awesome brainwave graphs in there from some people of this group, Kevin and Steven, just showing how the brainwaves can be so magnificently altered from years and decades of meditation and what's possible. So hopefully, I just wanted it to inspire people and to get people really interested in using the Muse headband. Again, for people that are mostly just coming into this niche, and then to generate further interest and more confidence in using the device.
Yeah, and I so agree. Like having people like Stephen and Kevin who are part of the HeartMind Alchemy project and who are showing us, what those longtime experienced meditators' brains look like. It's really inspiring. And then to have them there in the group to provide feedback is unbelievable. Super helpful.
Yep, big shout out to them. Very thankful for their presence.
As am I. Huge shout out to them. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yep.
So that wraps it up. You can find me. I'm Holly Copeland at HeartMind Alchemy. If you're interested in coaching, look at the coaching page. I'm excited to work with folks in this arena who want to work on neuroscience and meditation and technology and the intersection of those. Also, I started a new Patreon page. So if you're interested in throwing $1 in the proverbial hat for these types of Facebook interviews, you can go to patreon.com/HeartMind Alchemy. And look forward to the next one. Thank you everybody for joining us. It's been really fun. Thank you again, Cody. It's been great to have you here.
Awesome.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.